Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. I am very pleased to have with me in studio presidential candidate under the independent ticket, Evan McMullin is here. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Joe. Great to be with you.
CIA operations officer, among other things that you've done. This, I believe, certainly is paramount when we were talking about a president. Somebody who's got you've already got your clearance.
That's right. I do have a clearance. That's right.
I think you're the only guy who can go and actually take one of those briefs right now without, with actually having the credentials to do so.
That's right. I think that's true. Yeah.
Well, welcome. It's great to have you here. I've got a lot to talk to you about. I guess first and foremost is, I think it's in most people's mind, the path to the White House for you. Do you have a viable path? What is it?
Well, look, we have a couple of different categories of goals. The first is electoral, and that's what you would describe as the path to the White House. We've known since early on that this would be a very short, obviously, presidential campaign, a 3-month presidential campaign.
Yeah.
Very challenging one. Our goal electorally is to stop Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump from winning the White House. Now, if the race is very close between those two, it becomes more possible for us to do that. And in fact, it becomes possible that Utah, and maybe Utah alone or a handful of other states with Utah, could potentially block Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump by voting for me, if that's the way it plays out.
Little old Utah.
Yeah,
really
beautiful Utah, I would say.
Wow.
As we drove into Park City this morning. But if the race isn't close between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, then that goal becomes far more difficult. So, our goals electorally sort of depend, or largely depend, on variables that we don't entirely control, and those are the key ones. So if the gap in the Electoral College is very big between Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, then our objective in that category becomes far more difficult. In either case, though, my pitch to Utahns and other Americans is vote for me if you think if you support me, if you support my positions, if you think I'd be a better leader, support me, because if the race is close, we can stop Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. If the race isn't close, then stand with me, someone who's more likely to reflect your values and the kind of leader, hopefully, that you'd like to see in the White House than the two major party candidates.
The last time this happened, this idea that you have of blocking by picking up some electoral college votes and keeping them from getting that magic number, which is 270, 270, is 1825, a long time ago. And I guess the question I have is, you mentioned Utah could be part of that equation, but you pretty much, don't you have to pick up a pretty big state? I mean, where are you now of the, I heard you are approaching like 15 states that you guys are trying to get on the ballot. Where are we now? Which states are some of those critical ones where you might be able to make that kind of an impact?
We are on the ballot or registered as a write-in in, I think, 21 states now. By November 8th, we'll be on the ballot or registered as a write-in in 40 to 45 states. So the vast majority of Americans who want to cast a vote for me on November 8th will be able to do it. And people downplay the write-in opportunity, but the reality is that write-in
you can win on a write-in.
Senator Murkowski won her senatorial race in Alaska on a write-in campaign. President Nixon and Kennedy and others, Eisenhower, I believe, won states in their presidential campaigns on write-in campaigns. The key is that there be a campaign behind the write-in candidate. If it's just a write-in candidacy with no campaign, those don't tend to be successful. Nobody hears about them. But if there's a campaign behind it, they can be successful. So any campaign, whether it's traditional like that of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, or non-traditional like ours, you focus on a handful of states. You don't compete in all 50 states. It doesn't make sense. You focus on a handful of states. That's what we're doing. Our goal is more unique in that we're just trying to stop the other two. But we also have another category of goals, and that's the following. I firmly believe that the time has come in this country for a new generation of leadership. I think the time has come for a new conservative movement in this country. I think conservatism, as represented by Donald Trump and the Republican Party now, unfortunately, isn't good for the country and isn't carrying us forward. I think we need a new conservative that's committed to the Constitution, truly committed to the Constitution, truly committed to individual liberties and also committed to tolerance. There's no reason why people of different ethnic backgrounds and religions who are conservatives and share our values, share our respect for the Constitution, shouldn't be a part of the conservative movement. But right now they aren't because they don't feel welcome. So I think it's time for something new. I think Utahns understand that very well, and others in the Mountain West also.
So for you, this is being an independent, maybe even better than if you'd had the opportunity to be the Republican candidate. Would I be correct in saying so, do you think?
In a way, because I believe
there's a lot of partisanship there, right?
Yeah, well,
broken.
I think it is so broken. Between 72 and 82% of Americans feel that the country is on the wrong track. 42% of Americans consider themselves independents. Something's happening in this country where the American people are desperate for better options, and the two major parties right now aren't able to deliver them for a variety of reasons. We hoped on the Republican side, I was most recently the chief policy director for the House Republicans in Congress. After 2012, we realized we needed to make some changes to, welcome other religions and ethnicities and be friendlier to women in the party and that sort of thing. It didn't happen. Instead, we doubled down.
Yeah, it got worse.
Yeah, it got worse. And so I have serious concerns about whether the Republican Party is going to be able to do what it needs to do to maintain its most important values, conservative principles, but also welcome others into the movement.
All right, speaking of welcoming others into the movement, here's the big question, the debate. Clearly there's an issue here. I think this kind of goes to power brokers and all kinds of different things that we're dealing with in Washington. You have to have 15%, as I understand it, to be allowed into this debate. Is that fair? Don't you are you of the belief that everyone who's running, who's got their name on a ticket, should be in the debate?
I think that there has to be some threshold. There's no doubt about that. But what we have now is a debate commission. That isn't a government organization.
Right.
It's a private organization that is run and that only includes Republicans and Democrats. I think it's 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, something like that. They are incentivized, of course, to maintain or to ensure that only Republicans and Democrats are on the stage. So they do what they can to keep independents and third-party candidates off of that stage.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't think is serving the American people well anymore.
How are you ever going to get that 15% if you don't get a chance to talk to the American public?
Well,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, I assume you probably believe if you had that chance to talk, 15% is pretty easy to get, I think, at that point, isn't it?
If I feel that if I could debate Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump on stage, we would do much better than 15%. We're pursuing now an undercard debate with Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, where I think I would do well. I think our message is a powerful one. I think it would do well as compared to that of Gary Johnson and Jill Stein. And then that hopefully will help us move forward onto the debate stage with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
I'm kind of a believer of seeing everybody up there. I think as an American, I want to see everybody.
Yeah.
So if your name's on a ticket in more than one state, I think you should be there. But that's
well, there you go.
Right?
I certainly think that the threshold needs to be changed in such a way so that more are on the stage. There's no doubt about that. There are many people running for president across the country, so you couldn't have all of them be on the stage. But yes, if you're on the ballot, I think in so many states, and if you've gained a certain national level of attention and basic level of polling in a handful of states and that sort of thing, then I agree you should be on that stage.
All right. Let's talk about something that you remember Ronald Reagan, I think it was 1980, said, asked the American public, are you better than you were 4 years ago? I ask you a similar question. Are we as Americans better than we were 40 years ago?
Well, I think our economy has been very stagnant for the last 10 years. We've been growing in real terms, real GDP terms, at under 10% on average on an annual basis for 10 years, and people are really struggling.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're better off there. I think, we had made some progress in becoming more unified as a country, but now we seem more divided than we've been in a couple of decades at least.
Racial tensions seem to be like they were in 1968.
That's right, and there's no reason for that. But our leaders bear responsibility for that. that. And in this election especially, I see Donald Trump dividing us along religious lines and along racial lines. None of that is helpful to us. It actually weakens us. In fact, Vladimir Putin, who's a close friend of the Republican nominee Donald Trump, when he tries to undermine a country in Europe, Eastern Europe or Western Europe, or even here in the United States, the first thing he tries to do is divide the people within that country along racial or ethnic lines. And that's exactly what we see Donald Trump doing here in the United States. It poses a great threat. As a former CIA officer, I see this happening to our country. And this isn't just the former CIA officer talking. This is somebody who admires Abraham Lincoln, somebody who understands that when we're divided, we are weakened. We are weakened economically. We're weakened from a national security perspective. This is very real. We need leaders that are going to unite us, leaders who are going to pave a way to more economic growth. I don't think Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump either are offering a good vision or good ideas for that.
Well, I think the other thing the American public wants is somebody like them. We all sit back and say, I could do better than this person that's running right now. I think that's especially a common feeling right now. So we're going to find out more about how you fit into, are you like us? We're going to find out here in a minute when we take a break here on the Mountain Morning Show. We're going to come back. We're going to find out what Evan McMullin is like as a person. Going to dig a little deeper into his character right after these messages right here on Park City Television. Welcome back to the Mountain Morning Show. You're here in our house at Park City Television, but Evan McMullin, sitting next to me, wants to move his address to Pennsylvania Avenue as presidential candidate for the Independent Party, essentially. And we continue our conversation. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I want to kind of dig into a little bit about you, first of all, for a moment. Let's start by this. Do you know how many presidents have been elected that were not married and with children in the whole 9 yards?
There have been a few, actually.
There have been a few.
Yes, I'm forgetting their names now, but and it's been some time. But yes, there have been a few.
Does that part scare you when people start to, ask questions about that? Well, you're not married, you have kids, you don't know what I'm like, you have no idea. How do you answer that?
Well, I'm somebody who thinks family is enormously important. It's the foundation, one of the foundations of our country, of our society. I think a lot about our families and how families impact our educational system, how they impact our economies, how they impact our health. Right. It all starts in the family. And so, my largest aspiration in life, I'm running for president, but my largest aspiration in life is to be married and to have a family, and that will happen. But I think that I'm prepared to be president for other reasons. I'm prepared because I know from day one what needs to happen to secure this country, what needs to happen to get the economy up and running, what needs to happen to reform this government, the federal government, so that it's actually responsive to the American people, so that our Constitution is honored in terms of federalism, pushing more power back to the states, making sure that the balance of powers is truly in balance.
Right.
These are the things.
You think you can get Congress to start doing the work?
I do. We need a president who's willing to do that. I think we've got a lot of people in Congress now, even from this state. Senator Mike Lee is someone who understands these problems very well and is committed to solving them. There are other members of Congress too. There's some momentum around these ideas.
I feel like I'm paying them a lot of money, and I feel like I'm giving them a heck of a retirement and a great health plan to do literally nothing. I mean, they've honored a few, generals and a few, they've done a few, judges and things like that. They've put them through, but I've seen nothing else. So I hope you're right about that. I hope you can do something with that, because that would be impressive, I think, at this point.
Well, we need a president who's committed to the Constitution, and also we need members of the Senate and the House to be the same.
If you had to be in this process that you're going through, it's the Electoral College. If you break down the Electoral College, nobody wins. It goes to Congress. They decide. They pick you. How do you then go back to them and really put, a little grind on them to get going? Isn't that going to be hard to do?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all, because there are things that I want to do that they want. For example, Article 1 of the Constitution says that laws can only be made by Congress. But right now, the executive branch, which has gotten so large and powerful, writes its own rules and regulations that have the force of law. Then they adjudicate any disputes themselves, and they also assign fines to people who, I mean, they're judge, they're the judiciary branch, they're the legislative branch, and they're the executive branch all in one, which is exactly what our Constitution was meant to avoid.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Congress, of course, they want their legislative power back. Now, it's more complicated than just that. The devil's in the details, certainly. But there is a growing movement, a growing recognition in Congress that they need their Article 1 authority back. And that, why that's important for Americans is that Americans don't feel like they're being heard, and indeed they are not. They need their elected officials in Congress to be empowered to do what they're supposed to do according to the Constitution. And those elected representatives in Congress need to not shirk that responsibility and need to take it back, even though it's hard work. They need to be willing to take that responsibility back. And as a president who's committed to this, I think I can make progress.
All right. Let's get into some personal stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
We dig right in? You okay?
I guess. I'm
not going to ask you
I'm
for
a
your
little
tax
afraid.
return. I'm not going to ask you for your help.
Yeah.
Although I think everybody should get those.
Yeah, everything's on the table, whatever you want.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite food?
Sushi, and I'd say sushi.
Well, I like that one. All right. Okay. Favorite book?
Favorite book has got to be The Power of One.
Okay. Who's that by?
You're putting me on the spot there. Yeah. Well, it's the Power of One. Let me tell you, it's a book about a young man in South Africa who stands up to apartheid and stands up to racism. Okay. I'm forgetting the name of the book, but I read it a long time ago. You can, if you don't want to read the book, it's a thick one. You can watch the movie. Another book is Les Mis, is another book that I like.
Okay.
Another book is that I'm reading now by Robert Kagan is called The World America Made. It's about American leadership. It's a thin one. This is a book that I think every American should read. It's a thin book about the influence of the United States on the rest of the world and the good that it's done, the good that American leadership has brought to our country, but to the rest of the world. And that's not to say that we're perfect, because we're not.
No.
We've made mistakes. But the American leadership in the world has brought great blessings, I believe, to our country and to the world for the most part. And it's a great book to learn about that.
I think a CIA operative knows better than anybody about the mistakes that have been made out there, because we've seen us put our weight behind people and take it away, and then we've shifted gears a lot.
Right.
So I wish we had more time to talk about that, because you and I could go an hour on that, I'm sure, by itself. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie would be The Power of One again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a movie too. It's a great movie. I recommend it for everyone who hasn't seen it.
Are you a Mac or a PC?
Oh, Mac, 100%. Yeah, unless I need to build a financial model, then I've got to go to the PC. Yeah.
Were you ever bullied in school? Or were you? Where were you in that?
Yeah, early on, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. Early on, I was.
Like?
I do know what that's like. But then I started training at a Taekwondo gym, and that I put an end to that.
There is no crying in this dojo.
Yeah.
How much is a gallon of milk?
A gallon of milk. I think it's, I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't buy milk. I don't really buy milk, but I would imagine it's about $5 or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
About $2.09, I think, typically.
Really? Not in D.C.
Depends on where you get it. In D.C. it's a lot more.
In Utah, it's probably a lot cheaper, closer to the production of that milk.
Your the strangest thing you can think of in your life, or maybe your most embarrassing moment?
I've got a lot of those. Most strange, embarrassing moment, boy. I've got so many of those. Well, when I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money, so when we entertained ourselves by building forts in the woods and that sort of thing. So even simple things like going bowling that wasn't something I did. So I growing up, you start to go out with your friends as teenagers and in college. Anyway, long story short is, in college I found myself bowling with a bunch of friends, and I somehow bowled, and the ball hit the guard on the pins. Okay, you don't have to. So I thought, I'm a problem solver. When something is wrong, I go and I solve it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go get the ball. So I ran down the aisle, and by the way, those aisles are greased.
Yeah.
And you're wearing shoes that aren't helpful for that either. So I ran down there, and it was slippery, and I did not stay upright, and it was very embarrassing, and I'll never make that mistake again. So that was my most embarrassing moment, now shared with all of Utah.
There you go.
So yeah.
And hopefully soon the world. I think, being a regular guy, I think sometimes is the thing that we seldom see from a president or a regular girl in the case of Hillary Clinton. I think that's where the rubber meets the road. We want somebody like us. Isn't that what we want?
I think so. Somebody who understands us. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, I want to thank you so very much for being here. One last question, since we have just another moment. Veterans and military. Could you just say a little bit about what your thoughts are on that? I guess my friends will be very angry if I don't ask you that.
Well, absolutely. I served in all the post 9/11 war zones, served with our special forces operators and with conventional forces. I have a shared experience with them. The biggest problem for me, the one that I'm most passionate about right now, is health care for our vets. We are failing on that level. And I have one important principle. I've done work when I was in Congress as the Chief Policy Director for the House Republicans. I did work on this issue. This is the driving principle for me on veterans health care. Veterans ought to be able to take their benefit health care from the VA and go to wherever they want to get health care. I actually helped draft legislation that would do that. There are lots of different ideas out there and still lots of debate and discussion, but we need to make reforms so that veterans can go to the corner clinic or to the Cleveland Clinic or to the VA. Regular people in America get that. Our heroes should have that freedom as well.
Well, I wish we were going to get a lot more time to talk, because I've got tons of questions that I could continue to ask you. I hope that you have that opportunity to answer some of those questions in a debate. That would be nice.
Thank you. That would be amazing.
But I want to thank you so very much for coming here on the Mountain Morning Show. Evan McMullin, he's the candidate for the Independent Party for President of the United States. He was right here on the Mountain Morning Show this morning, and we appreciate him joining us. Lots more coming up here in the Mountain Morning Show. We have an epidemic here in Park City that we have to face, and we are very happy to have some people here to talk about that very important topic here in just a moment or two on the Mountain Morning Show. So stay with us. We'll be right back.